Hi guys, in the minds of many Brexiteers, when things go well in Europe, it has nothing to do with the EU. It's individual countries doing well, despite the jackboot of Brussels holding them back. But when things go badly in individual EU countries, it is yet another sign of the bloc on the edge of collapse, a collapse I've been reading about since 2002. So Brexiteer Mark Dolan of GB News, who allegedly is also a comedian, I frankly don't know where the news ends and the comedy begins, delivered a damning indictment of the EU and a shining one of Brexit Britain. But the latest Brexit benefit? Keeping rioters out. Yes, he actually said that.
Oh dear, this doesn't really fit the script, does it? Dutch farmers in revolt, extremist populist parties on the rise across Europe, countries like Spain, France and Italy on the precipice of a sovereign debt crisis, and France ablaze with supposedly the most civilised nation on earth, a sophisticated and mature Western democracy, in a state of near civil war, with the authorities close to losing control of some of France's great cities. This really doesn't fit the script, does it, with ultra-green Germany reliant on imports of oil and gas to power their factories, having bankrolled Putin's war machine for years, and now granting licenses for new coal mines on German soil. This really doesn't fit the script, does it, with both Germany and the Eurozone deep in recession?
Not deep in recession. Yes, they're in recession, or it's looking likely they'll be in recession, but the UK will likely fall into recession this year because it's necessary to bring down inflation. Like, Rishi Sunak is talking about growing the economy and bringing down inflation, and the Bank of England have said that they want a recession in order to bring down inflation. So it's looking more and more likely that a recession will take place. But I'm not taking any joy out of this. I don't think any reasonable person is. But the Brexiteers, especially in GB News, seem to take some sort of joy out of the fact that the Eurozone is in recession. Now, not all EU countries in the Eurozone are in recession. For example, the Netherlands is not in recession, the one that he brought up at the beginning of this report, if you can call it a report. It's strange how he left out some of the countries that are not in recession. Just say, well, the Eurozone is in recession. But not all EU member states are in the Eurozone. I'm sure Mark understands that, or does he?
Meanwhile, peaceful, diverse, integrated Britain, building a modest but sustained economic recovery. We have law and order on the streets, and a political scene as mild as a night out with Mary Berry, and a country which is happily recession-free.
For how long? As I said, Rishi Sunak and the Bank of England, it seemed, want to manufacture a recession in order to bring down inflation.
But we're out of the European Union, and their wonderful grown-up politics and their brilliant energy policies and their amazing wisdom on the economy and their well-functioning societies. I thought they were better than us, and it would be a disaster if we left. What's going on? I'm so confused. It's a matter of deep amusement to me that as the credibility of the EU hangs by a thread thin...
What do you mean the credibility of the EU hangs by a thread? You're talking about individual countries having problems, be them economic problems or political problems. What's that got to do with the EU? Once again, we have these Brexiteers who look at something going badly in an EU country, in this case France, and say, oh, that's a sign of the EU collapsing. But I've been hearing the same stories since the introduction of the euro in 2002. The introduction of the euro, that's going to collapse the EU. Oh, the financial crisis, that's going to collapse the EU. Oh, Brexit is going to collapse the EU. The pandemic is going to collapse the EU. We've been hearing this continually since 2002. Maybe it happened even before that, but I've been following it since 2002. And it's almost every time there's some sort of crisis, the Eurosceptics will say, the anti-EU people will say, the EU is about to collapse at any moment.
Thinner than posh spice on a diet, Brexit gets better by the day. The decision by 17.4 million people to leave the bloc in 2016 is ageing better than Sophia Loren.
Spoilers, he's not going to give any examples. You know, if you thought that Brexit was getting better by the day, then surely he could point to something. Now, is it, well, we don't have people rioting? Is that a Brexit benefit? Is that what he's going to go with? Well, he doesn't actually give any examples, unfortunately, so we can only speculate.
Now, what's happening in France is very sad, particularly for the poor lad that was shot dead by cops, a horrific crime which sparked all of this. And it's a tragedy for French families who are afraid to leave their own home after 5 nights of torched cities, eye-watering violence, arson, looting, burglaries, stabbings, muggings, shootings. It's a terrible state of affairs, and I'm sure that you'll join me in praying for a resolution to this crisis.
I'm a little bit skeptical of Brexiteers praying for things to improve in France. Maybe I'm being overly cynical, but I'm a bit skeptical.
France is a great ally, and in spite of a bumpy relationship over the years, they are our friends. But it's worth noting that if we were still in the bloc, with free movement, those causing such carnage in France would be free to come here and do the same.
What the hell are you talking about? So if we... Oh my goodness. This is pure and utter desperation. He couldn't come up with a Brexit benefit, so he's now coming up with, well, if we were still in the EU, these rioters could come to Britain. Why are they rioting? There are a number of reasons why they're rioting, but this has to be comedy. This has to be parody. It has to be satire. The reason, the benefit of being outside the EU, if you ignore all the costs, such as the lack of freedom of movement for British people, as well as bringing people in from abroad to fix, the shortage in a whole range of sectors, the cost of imports, the cost of exports. If you eliminate all of that, the benefit is we don't have these rioters. These rioters can't move to Britain. They don't want to move to Britain. They don't care about Britain. They want to cause trouble in France. There's copycat attacks taking place in other countries, but it's nothing to do with freedom of movement. The people rioting are rioting in their towns. This is insane. The idea that, well, if we didn't have freedom of movement, or if we had freedom of movement, these people would be able to flow across the channel into Britain and riot here too. You seriously believe that would happen? Well, there's nothing to stop these rioters from crossing the channel. Really, just sit down and have a think about that for a moment. How ludicrous it is. He couldn't come up with a Brexit benefit, so he tried to shoehorn in some sort of idea that, well, if we were still a member of the European Union, all these rioters would come across the sea and riot here too. Insane. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.